This is Lyle Blackburn, and you're listening to the Cryptid Creatures podcast with Brian and Todd.
About 2 o'clock in the morning, I was woke up to something walking by the tent that shook the ground. And that's what woke me up. This thing was shaking the ground as it walked right by the tent. Boom, boom, boom. Well, it started talking. And not only was there just one, there were 3 different ones talking to each other outside our tent. I'm crapping because I myself am not like believing this is even going on. They sounded like the American Eskimos or American Indians, sounded like a dialect somewhere in there.
This is the 100th episode of the Cryptid Creatures podcast. I am Brian, and with me as always is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
What's going on, man? 100.
Man, I know. I can't believe we've been doing it this long.
I mean, that is just amazing. It's been...
It doesn't even seem like it just flew by.
I know. It's been well over a year and a half now, going on 2 years, and here we are. I mean, I've never really done 100 of anything before, so...
Not me either. Nope.
Thank you to all the listeners for being here so far. We appreciate it more than anything.
Yes, thank you all for supporting us for these last 2 years.
We're going to keep bringing you great content. The next 100 will be even better. So, again, thank you.
Right on, man.
Tonight's episode, Brian, as you know, we thought we'd bring it back home.
Yeah, another Indiana encounters. Several encounters.
Got a couple Indiana encounters coming on tonight. Yeah. We're going to bring on Kyle, who's going to tell us about his encounters in Indiana.
Pretty excited about that. We'll bring it back to where it started, in Indiana.
Exactly. And then I think he had 1 or 2 up in Michigan as well he might talk about. So.
All right. Well, I can't wait to hear him.
All right. Well, let's get this 100th show on the road. You ready?
Yep. Let's get it. What's up, Kyle?
Hello.
Kyle, thanks for talking to us tonight.
Yeah, man. Good to have you.
Thank you.
We were connected by a mutual friend and former guest on our show, and you know, Dwayne, who had his encounter and everything in Indiana here. And that's where you had your incidences and encounters, right?
Right.
So how do you know Dwayne?
Actually, I served with him on the same police department. I was a reserve officer for 6 years, and served with him. He was one of my training officers, actually, when I started.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, why don't you get into the first encounter incident that you had and tell us what happened.
Okay. Well, the first definite one that I know happened when I was over in Kosciuszko County. It was a fish and wildlife area, and I was looking for a place to bow hunt and parked my vehicle and started walking down the road. Just like basically finding, access into the woods where I could see the game trails, and went from there. And as I'm walking along through the woods, I hear these 2 sandhill cranes squawking and making all kinds of racket. And I'm thinking to myself, what's going on there? So walked up over the hill, and I had my phone with me, so I decided to take 2 pictures of them. And as I took those pictures, startled me, but Sasquatch was hiding there in the nest of foliage behind him. Didn't know it until it stood up, and of course I'm startled. I only got to see it for maybe 5 seconds, and it probably had ran 100 yards in maybe 4 seconds, I'm gonna say.
Wow.
I would have said the height of it is probably a good 9 feet tall, because I came up to probably its belly button. And This thing was just jet black. It was as thick as it is wide. And of course, I freaked out, took off running back to my vehicle, sat there probably like a half hour just to calm down. I was shaking from adrenaline so bad. And then I thought to myself, I wonder if I got that, on my pictures that I took, because I was just, like I said, just taking pictures of the sandhill cranes as far as I knew. And then I realized that I did pick it up, although it looks, like just dark, maybe blobbish. But, the pictures I sent to you guys, I had circled where it was. That was my first encounter that I had seen one, and that was July of 2017.
How close were you?
Oh, at most it was probably 35 yards away. It wasn't very far.
Did you get any details of the face?
To me, it looked like an Aboriginal from Australia, just hairy in the face. Okay. It doesn't look like an ape to me. It looked more like an Aboriginal native. It, of course, had thick brow ridge, thicker than an Aboriginal, but it had the same features to its face, in my opinion. Didn't really look apish to me at all. Like you hear some people say they look like apes, but it looked like a person to me. Just very, giant person, of course.
Right.
And you said this happened in game preserve?
Yeah, it's a fish and wildlife area there. There's actually 3 counties that are shared.
Weird to see that happen in more northern Indiana, but that's what we're hearing. So, what else happened, Kyle?
Second encounter was in the Huron National Forest up in Michigan. The closest city at the time would have been Glenny, and it was my ex-wife now. We were on a loop trail within the park that we were at. And I don't really want to name specific locations just because I don't want these things to be harassed, and I don't want people to go and do something stupid and get hurt. So we decided to go walk this loop trail. And previous to going there, I had looked at some videos on YouTube. I don't know if any of you guys have watched, used to be Utah Sasquatch. And he was showing some of the structures and things that Sasquatch are known to make. So I had an idea what to look for. I wasn't really looking for it, but as we're on this loop trail, we're going along, and there's just tree after tree pushed over the trail, from both sides of the trail. And I said to her, boy, it sure looks like someone or something has went through an awful lot of trouble to block this trail off. And, she pretty much had thought the same thing. So we progressed down the trail, and I saw this structure there, and it looked like just a dome made out of branches woven together. I'd say it was at least 10 feet tall. I don't know, but the weirdest thing that grabbed me was looking at it. At the very top in the center was it looked like the top of a pine tree was placed there like a decoration. And the odd thing was, we're in a hardwoods area. There were no pine trees to be seen. I looked 360 as far as the eye could see, and there wasn't a pine tree in sight. So it had to have been brought there and placed there, I'm assuming. And so at that point, I decided to go into this thing. So I'm in it, and I didn't smell anything odd, or I didn't see any footprints or anything like that. But after being in there a few minutes, we were both looking at it. It dawned on me that one might be nearby. Said, something to her, we should probably get going because, we're in this thing's home probably, and it could be nearby. Looked off to my right, and there was one. It was a red-haired one, and it was squatted down like in the football lineman stance. One hand on the ground, and the other seemed like it was on its hip. And this one, had very long hair, whereas the previous black one I had seen had shorter hair, it seemed. So this had really long hair streaming off its arms. I'd say between 6 and 10 inches long in some places. And so we see this sitting there watching us. And I just told her, don't look it in the eyes. Just start walking. And if I tell you to run, run. Don't worry about me, because me being the husband, my duty to protect her, I thought. And so, yeah, we started back out on the trail, and we passed some undergrowth. There's probably a section of it, maybe 30, 40 feet long, where we couldn't see where it was on the other side of it. But as we cleared that undergrowth, could see where it was again, it was gone. But one of the odd things was, while I was in that little hut, or big hut, however you want to look at it, it seemed like you could see every area of the park from where it was, but there would be no way you could see it from the park. You could see where all these seasonal RVs were. You could just see it was across the other side of the river there. I'm trying to think, the Osabo River. Yeah, that's where it was along that river up there. So yeah, you could see the entire park from inside that hut.
So he was just sitting there watching you come out of his home.
Yep. Never felt scared, never smelled anything, and never made any noises. It was just sitting there watching us. Which
that's good, I guess.
Kind of thought was odd. But
did this one look like the first one that you saw? Could you tell?
That one I thought it did too. It had looked like leathery grayish skin, deep set eyes. It was more sitting back in the shadows, but you could tell it looks human to me. It's just a bigger head, of course, bigger eyes, bigger head, wider nose, like a flat long mouth, but just giant proportions. I'd say both of them, looking at their biceps, it's like bowling balls. Closest thing I could compare it to. But their arms just look like tree trunks. I mean, sort of their legs, but it's like their forearms are just so immensely huge. It's like looking at a football player's leg. The size of their leg is the size of one of these things' forearms. It's insane.
Wow.
What did your wife say after you guys saw it and got out of there?
She was just relieved to be out of there. She was from Denver, Colorado, so she grew up kind of knowing that they are around, and she has some American Indian heritage, so it didn't really surprise her any. I mean, to see one in Indiana, I would have never expected in a million years to see one in Indiana, nor up in Michigan. I always had thought they were out in the Pacific Northwest, maybe in the Rockies, up in through Canada. I saw the Gimlin film like everybody else. I remember watching that on TV with my dad. I think it was on In Search Of when I was just young, and he asked me if I thought they were real. I said, it looks real. So, why can't it be real? And then, years later, we find out that nobody can duplicate that. not even Steven Spielberg, Yeah, I just never in a million years would have thought I'd ran into one around here. I always thought if I ever saw one, it would be such a rare occasion, and it would have to be, Pacific Northwest or something like that. I never would have dreamed of seeing one.
Yeah, we thought the same thing when we started this podcast, and we're surprised.
I can honestly say that Indiana might be tied for the most encounters against any other state that we've done an episode on, honestly. I mean, this makes 3 or 4 at least for Indiana that I know of, maybe 5 that we've done. So
just that we know of.
That's crazy to me. I would have never thought that these things were in Indiana either. I mean,
yeah, because there's nothing here. Corn.
You hear about them in Michigan more, and that's more believable. But yeah, anywhere there's some waterway and some heavy woods, you kind of just
I guess, anything can live there.
Wildlife refuge kind of places, they seem to be popping up there. It's just so crazy.
And it seems to me, I mean, really, when you think about Indiana or Illinois or Michigan, most of the area is rural anyways. It's pretty sparse in between big cities. It's all agriculture around here. And, it's either corn, soybeans, wheat, or woods, pretty much in between big cities. And really, northeast Indiana, you got Fort Wayne. That's the biggest city around. And, wherever the county seat seems to be is like the larger cities. But, in between there, it's all rural everywhere you go. So they got plenty of places to hide. There's plenty of railroad tracks for them to walk up and down. Seems like they are known to do that. So we got plenty of railroad around here.
That's true.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. We do have a lot of railroad ways around here. Back to your first encounter, Kyle. What did you do after you got the heck out of there? Did you tell anybody? Did you go hide? What happened?
I did. But of course, I learned to keep it quiet because most people just laugh at you and then think you're crazy, So started looking into it, after my first sighting, and knew that, all these people all over these states are seeing them, then I know I'm not alone. So these people that think it's a laughable joke, you see these Jack Links messing with Sasquatch commercials and stuff, making fun of the subject. And I really wish it wasn't that way. I really wish that people knew it's a real deal being out there, and whatever, abilities they have, may it be, I don't know if it's supernatural or if they can go in and out of this, what's the word I'm looking for?
Portal dimension.
This dimension. I don't know. I don't know where they came from. If they're from, if they're the Nephilim, like some people think, I don't know. Have they been here as long as us? Could be here longer. I don't have any idea. Yeah. But I do think they share the same DNA, I guess, to a degree. I mean, you got Dr. Melba Ketchum that did the Sasquatch Genome Project, and they had over 100 different samples. And, mainstream science isn't going to admit it, and then there's got to be a reason why. And why is that? It can't just be to protect forests. It's got to be something that's just gonna like blow people's socks off, something that they're gonna have to rewrite history or something to that degree, I think.
Yeah, that's possible.
Definitely a broader subject than I ever imagined it could be.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're finding that out every time we talk to somebody new.
Definitely. Yeah, the more we learn, the more confused I get. And who knows what the hell these things are. Maybe they're keeping it covered because maybe they think it's a the government or whoever does know what these things are, if that's true, maybe they think it's a link between, the missing link or the link between evolution of apes to man. And they don't want to let that out because a lot of people don't believe that. Who knows why it's being kept a secret. But yeah, I mean, I think they've been here a long time. I'd like to believe that they're just a natural creature that has, been here for a long time, as long as man, if not longer, a caveman, so to speak. They're very stealthy. They're very good at hiding. They have some kind of maybe cave systems that we don't know about that they stay in. Who knows? Who knows what these things are doing? But yeah, to see them in the areas that people are seeing them in middle northern Indiana, for one, I would never have thought in my life. Growing up thinking, I want to see a Bigfoot. I want to see a Bigfoot someday, but I got to go out west. I got to go to California. I got to go to Oregon. I could be driving down the highway. Be driving down the highway tomorrow here in Indiana, and boom, I could see one down. Who knows? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I guess can be anywhere, anytime. So, for me to have as many things happen to me when I go camping or out in the woods, I'm starting to believe that theory that people come up with they might mark you in some fashion. I don't know, but I've had a lot of things happen to me, more so when I was younger than I even knew then. I didn't realize until I started looking into this stuff and then found out, man, some of these things that happened to me when I was a teenager that couldn't explain then, now I have an explanation for. Not necessarily saying everyone was, but I'm leaning that way.
What kind of things happened to you?
Well, I used to be in Boy Scouts. Of course, we would hit the trails sometimes coming back at night, and we would have something paralleling us through the woods. Actually, we had that happen a couple times, and the one was at, I think it was Little Turtle Scout Camp. I'm just going to throw the name out there. Don't care. That was, oh boy, I was probably 14, 15 then. And we ended up running through the woods because, we stopped and we would hear like one more step and then it would stop. And then we'd run, it would run. We'd stop and you'd hear like another step or two. But there was nobody with a flashlight or anything, and it was pitch black out. So who the heck is running through the woods with no flashlight, keeping up with us? And, we're 14, 15 years old. Of course we're freaking out. We ran through the woods as fast as we could back to camp, and then, told those guys what was going on, and they just thought we had overactive imaginations, of course. But
of course.
We knew what we heard. We knew what we experienced, so nobody was going to talk us out of what just happened to us,
Right.
To lend some credence to it'd be Dwayne Anderson that was in episode 9. A friend of mine is deceased now, but we were probably 15 or 16. We both had the same kind of moped, and we went out west of town, and where we were was probably no more than 1,000 yards where Dwayne has his encounter outside of town. We parked our mopeds along this bridge, and we got off and looked over the side, and there were probably 5 or 6 dead deer laying down there under the bridge, and looked like they had broken necks. And my friend decided he wanted to go, down around under the bridge to get a closer look at them. I don't know why, but whatever. He did. He made it, and I would say just as his feet cleared from where the embankment is, let's say you were under the bridge and could see him as soon as you probably could have seen his legs. That's when we heard a growl, and it was a deep growl, but it sounded like a human being, or a very large human being. And when he heard it, his eyes got, as big as, saucers, and he tore ass back up on the bridge. And then we both got on our mopeds and took off out of there. And later that night, we went to it was a dance at the cafeteria at school. Is where they used to hold them, and we were in junior high, and we ran into the police chief. So, police chief and my dad were really good friends. Actually, my dad used to be the chief of police up until 1974, and the chief that we were talking to had just started on the department with my dad. He was underneath my dad, as an officer, and we talked to him about it, and he said he would go out and check it out. He told us when we did ask him again, he said, "Don't go out there. You got no business being out there. Just stay away from there." So I don't know what it was he saw. He never did tell us what he saw. So this day I still wonder. And for years, I just, put that off to the side and never really gave it a second thought until some of this stuff started happening to me. Just like the thing, being chased through the woods when I was a Boy Scout, stuff like that. But that thing at the bridge happened, I'd say 1987, 88. So within, 6-7 years of when Dwayne had his encounter just down the road. So wow. Who knows? Could have been the same thing.
That's interesting.
But yeah, we didn't know this until, I talked to him maybe a couple months back. Another guy we served with, I said, "Man, I sure wish I could talk to Dwayne right now." And he's like, "Well, I've been talking to him for like 2.5 hours." And I was like, "Dude, send him my info," because he told me he had an encounter out in that area. And I was like, "No way. I got to talk to him," because, I served with him. And of course he didn't mention it. Nobody's going to mention that when you're a cop.
No.
Nobody is. It's just something you just don't talk about.
Right.
And I get now that he's retired, now he can let it out, and he did. And I believe him 100%. He is definitely a straight shooter. He's no bull kind of guy. And to have something happen, within maybe 1,000 yards of where he did, I just couldn't believe, it's like, that's such a coincidence, being that close. And never once did either one of us know that we had something happen to us out there.
And you probably weren't the only ones.
But,
there's probably more that encountered whatever was running around out there. And I know that area you're talking about. We won't disclose it, but I actually drove by there on my way to somewhere and just happened to be close. And I thought I'd pop by where Dwayne said it happened. And I sent him a picture. He's like, "Yeah, that looks like it. That's it." So where in relation would that bridge be to that spot? North, south, east, or west? Just curious.
It's actually south of his encounter location. Okay. It's on the same county road.
Okay.
But it jogs. It actually, okay.
I know you're talking to me. You cross some
So
tracks.
if you take that stop, you head north down the road, and the road will T. And if you take a left for maybe 100 yards, 200 yards, and then take a right, that's the road extended. So it just does a little jog to the left, and then it goes under a trestle for the railroad there. That's where Dwayne had his encounter, and that's where my friend and I were out there on our mopeds. But it's like 1,000 yards away from where Dwayne had his happen.
I'm wondering if there's still anything going on to this day, hiding out under that bridge, using it as a
I don't know
spot.
Oh, I'm sure there would be.
So, Brian, we should take a road trip here soon and check that out.
Absolutely. It's not that far.
It's only maybe 2 miles outside of town, maybe. There's just a little, Garrett is where I'm from. And then there's just another little town that's, it's still considered a town, but, at one point the city of Garrett was, and I think still do the patrolling through there, even though they want to be independent of Garrett. It's just a little tiny town called Altona.
Yeah, like you said earlier, you guys aren't going to be lying. You've served as police officers for one, and you've kept it a secret until after you're done serving. And why would you make something like that up? There's no reason for it.
Right.
Especially
you're not going to gain anything.
I don't need fame or anything like that. And for me to just get ridiculed for it, why do I want to make this up?
Right, exactly.
To be thought of as a crazy nut, whatever, or likes to tell stories or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be known as. So I'm very selective as to who I talk to about, and if they'll bring up the subject or whatever. It just depends. Just depends.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all.
And I had another encounter, same ex-wife. We were camping up there on it would be the extreme west side of the Upper Peninsula, not very far from Lake Superior. Pretty remote camping location. Day we got there, we unloaded everything out of the back of I had a Chevy Trailblazer at the time, so unloaded everything, got everything set up around the picnic table, got the tent pitched and all that, and then had to go get some wood. So this was just down the road, saw a place to get wood on the way there. I asked her if she wanted to come with me because I didn't really feel right, leaving her there by herself, but, she was continuing to set some smaller stuff up. And she's like, no, it's okay. I got my bear spray. I got an axe. I got a knife. And you're only going to be, a few minutes anyways. So she's like, no, I'll be all right. I'm like, okay. So I go get wood, come back. She's sitting in the camp chair, just white as a ghost. And I say, what happened? And she's like, well, I went across the road and started to cut this down tree over there and got wood knocks back. So ran back here and been sitting here waiting on you to come back. I'm like, great. So they know we're here, and now I know they're here. So this is going to be fun, Get fire going and all that, and finish setting up camp. I'm sitting there just talking to her, and every once in a while I'd see something move out in the woods. It'd be just in the shadows, and just enough to catch my eye. And I'd look up, and she'd be like, "What are you looking at?" And nothing, just nothing. And she knew what I was looking at because it would grab my attention, and I just didn't want to, frighten her,
right?
Really. So kept seeing this throughout the day, just some movements back through the woods. Nothing happens. And later that night, turn in, I'm laying there and end up falling asleep. Didn't think nothing of it. Just another camp out. About 1:00 in the morning, I heard what I thought was a barred owl, but it wasn't a barred owl. It was sounded like a really big barred owl. And I've come to find that they like to make that sound. And it's a pretty close mimic, but you can tell it's not a barred owl. So I heard that and listen, nothing happened. Fell asleep. About 2:00 in the morning, I was woke up to something walking by the tent that shook the ground. And that's what woke me up. This thing was shaking the ground as it walked right by the tent. Just boom, boom, boom. And then I hear it out there smelling. And the only thing that I have personally been around that I could compare it to is being next to a draft horse or, a large horse breathing. It was that depth of breath going in and out of this thing. It wasn't snorting around or huffing like a black bear or anything like that. And So, I'm at full attention now. Whatever this, and well, it started talking. And not only was there just one, there were 3 different ones talking to each other outside our tent. Of course, woke my ex-wife up, and I put my hand over her mouth and, shh. It's like, listen, they're out there talking. And, I'm crapping because I myself am not like believing this is even going on. But they sounded like, if you've ever watched any documentary about like the American Eskimos or American Indians, sounded like a dialect somewhere in there.
Okay.
But a very, very deep voice. But this thing was, right outside our tent talking, and it sounded to me like there was one on each side of us behind our tent. So it like kind of triangulated around us, and they were all talking. It probably went on for maybe 2 minutes, and then just walked away. Meanwhile, I gotta go outside and take a whiz, but there's no way I'm going out. It was a little after 2 a.m, and I knew I wasn't going outside of the tent until at least daybreak. Still, I wasn't like afraid, but I didn't want to go out there and have something happen. I'm not stupid, but
Right.
I guess it takes a lot to scare me. But I guess I would be as close to being scared as I could be, I guess. But so I'm holding it for like 3 hours. I had to roll outside the tent. There's no way I could stand up. My bladder was so full it hurt to even try to stand up. So I had to roll out the tent and unleash, so to speak. Yeah, that was the last encounter I've had up in Michigan. But I have heard them howling, like you've heard maybe some clips from Sierra Sounds or just sounds from around the country that people recorded with their cell phones or video cameras. I've heard that stuff like at Salamone Reservoir, and I've heard them howling there. Shade State Park, Brown County State Park. Yeah, and it's usually always at like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. They start off, and if there's any dogs in the neighborhood or whatever, that we start howling and barking too. So it's
That's
crazy.
interesting.
I've heard that several times about that owl mimic they try to do, but the people say they can tell that it sounds like they're trying to mimic an owl, and it's not the best impression.
It's a close match, pretty close, but you can tell it was like, man, that sounds like a really big owl. You just know it's not an owl, but it's really close.
They must be doing it for communication or
But
something.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know, but it seems to be a definite thing that they do. Then, of course, I meet my girlfriend now. We've been together for it's going on 2 years, but I had to tell her, like, because I asked her if she likes camping. Oh yeah, she loves camping. This is when we first started dating, and I was like, great, then we can go camping. But there's some stuff I got to tell you. And she's like, okay, what? And I told her I've had all these things happen. So you can think I'm nuts, whatever. But I'm telling you, if you come camping with me, something more than likely is going to happen. And she's like, well, okay, She's like, I believe in some things that people might think I'm crazy for. So I guess, this isn't that odd to her. So, okay. So then we go to the Indiana Dunes, National Forest there, and or whatever it is, National Park. 11 o'clock at night, snap tree right behind our campsite. I said, you heard that, right? She's like, oh yeah. I was like, well, sounds like they're here. And again, they know I'm here. And I said, now I wasn't BSing you, So we had her 2 granddaughters with us at the time, and after they went to bed, we stayed up for a little bit talking around the campfire. And then when we decided to go to bed, funniest thing, I could smell like very strong ammonia. Like, I don't know if you ever been around a cat's litter box and smell that, the ammonia that comes off their urine. But I smelled strong ammonia smell like that. Now, I smelled it for a little while. And then maybe a few minutes later, we hear our whole picnic table start shaking. And then just hear footsteps running off. It scared the crap out of us. That actually did startle us, you know. But yeah, who's gonna pick up like a whole picnic table and shake it? Because like everything on there, it sounded like an earthquake almost was shaking the picnic table. Nobody around, you know. We were the only two up, but you know, just pretty odd happenings. Then another state park we were out on a trail, and again, the barred owl call. We're down in this ravine, making our way back up to the trail to get out. So we stop, start looking at our map, making sure we're going the right way, and we start getting rocks thrown at us. So looking around, there's nobody around. We're the only ones out. It's getting towards dusk, and we're aware that they throw rocks and acorns, sticks, whatever. I just yelled, "Okay, we're leaving," and then it stopped. So then we commenced to get out of there, off the trail, and I do believe that's the last thing I've had happen to. But wow. She is definitely a believer. I got no reason to make this stuff up. It happens to me, and she needed to be made aware that that's what happened. And to go with the happenings there at the Indiana Dunes, we're both up the next morning, and the one granddaughter asked her, why was Kyle pushing in on our tent last night? And she's like, he wasn't pushing in on your tent. And she's like, he wasn't? She's like, no, we went to bed and we were in the tent together all night. It wasn't him. And she's like, well, they had a big hand. And she's like, how big? And shows her, and you know, it looks like it's like a foot long hand is what she, you know, put her hands up to. Like, yeah, so something with about foot long hands was pushing in on the top of her tent.
Were there any marks or anything left on the tent?
Didn't see anything. You know, every instance that I know that they've been around, I've looked for footprints, and either the ground's just too gravelly and hard, can't pick up anything. I've even looked at the pollen that's left on the vehicle windows, because I guess sometimes now they like to go up and like peer into your windows. I was looking for any kind of handprints, anything, and I have yet to find any handprints or footprints like that. But you know, I guess
keep looking.
I'm pretty fortunate. Maybe I guess fortunate to have been able to see two of them, or who knows? Maybe it's a curse. I don't know, but I guess
it depends on how you look at it.
That happen.
Do you want to see another one?
Sure. Why not? I just don't want one that's like the angry type you always hear about, like roaring at people and, you know, like paralyzing them with fear. I don't want that. I don't ever want that.
And nobody wants that.
I guess from my experience, except for the one that, you know, the first one I saw ran away from me, but the red-haired one, it just sat there watching. And, you know, I never did get to see the ones that were talking. I mean, to see one, I mean, you just won't believe your eyes of how big they are. Because I can compare it to maybe when I was like 2 and my dad would come home from the railroad. You know, he worked on the railroad after he resigned from police department because he couldn't raise 3 kids on a cop's pay, so he went to the railroad. When I was like 2 or 3 and dad would come home and I'd wrap my arms around his leg, you know, dad's home. that's how that thing made me feel. Like, my dad was like a giant to me when I was 2, 3 years old. So that's kind of how I felt looking at the the ones that I've seen. They just make you feel like you're so minuscule, and they could just tear you limb from limb if they ever felt like it. I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure they could.
Incredibly strong. I mean, just to hear they can rip trees out of the ground and turn them upside down, shove them back into the ground, or just to snap a tree.
Mm-hmm.
What's the PSI to break a tree?
I don't know. It's got to be a lot.
Like a 3-inch tree. Go hang on one. Try to break it. There's no way.
Mm-mm.
Who's not going to do it? And they just, you watch any kind of program with like gorillas and stuff, the immense strength they have, and they break bamboo like nothing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, and they make a gorilla look tiny. They're easily twice as heavy as a gorilla.
You wonder how they stay hidden, being that big. How the hell do these things stay hidden like this?
They're smart. Well, the mountain gorilla was thought to be a made up.
Yeah, that was a myth too for a long time.
What was it? The early 20th century they finally found him, maybe, or the late 19th century,
early 1900s.
Thought it was a myth,
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I guess if they could stay hidden for what? I mean, how far back do you want to go? Thousands of years, hundreds of years. Once man became more civilized and was documenting things, I guess. What are you talking? 600, 700, 800 years, 1,000 years before that? I don't know. I mean, if those things stayed hidden just until years ago, whatever it was, then why couldn't something else be out there that was more intelligent, that had a better surrounding and environment to hide in, be out there and doing what Bigfoots are doing? Why couldn't it?
Right. And we got Native Americans saying for centuries that they knew about them and used to trade with them, and they call them people. So I'm going to go with that and say they're probably a type of people. They definitely have a language. It sounds, like I said, Eskimo-ish or Native American, some kind of dialect like that.
I'm sure it's some kind of dialect, different dialect of Native American.
But you got all these people. Oh, we've got so many trail cams and this and that. We'll catch them on trail cam. Well, not if they can see infrared. Or
right.
I'll equate putting a trail cam on a tree like them putting leaves and sticks on the floor of my house. When I walk in and see leaves and sticks that are a foreign, object to my environment, you telling me they're not going to see the same thing when they see a trail cam?
Oh, yeah.
Unless you hide it really well, but they probably have watched you put it on the tree.
I was going to say, they probably are watching you do it.
Yeah. These things are smart, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those are amazing encounters you had for us tonight, Kyle.
Yeah, those were great, man. Thanks for sharing those.
Yep. Decided it's time to get it out there. Maybe it'll help somebody else that's had some of these things. You're not alone. You're not crazy.
Yeah, hopefully some more Indiana people will come forward if they hear this. That'd be awesome.
Yeah. Sometimes people will say things and I kind of key in on something and that I've been pondering on for a while. And you said tonight on the show, when I asked you what its face looked like, and you said the Aboriginal.
Yeah.
I never really thought about that before. I've been hearing people describe it and trying to tie it together in my mind of what are they saying? What kind of mixture are we talking about here? But when you said Aboriginal, I kind of thought, okay, that makes sense to me now. I can picture this now.
That skin tone, if you look at like an Australian Aboriginal, even like the black one, that had that skin tone, that really dark brown to, black.
Right.
Skin tone. And to me, it looked just like an Aboriginal. Of course, had a deeper brow and just bigger proportions to its face, but it looked like a hairy Aboriginal man to me, just giant.
That's just so cool to me to know that they're right here They are here in Indiana and fairly
right in
close.
our backyard.
Fairly close to us, you know. That's hoping to be driving down the road and see one sometime, somewhere, anywhere.
Anywhere, anytime, I think, you know.
Yeah.
Well, again, Kyle, we appreciate it, man. We thank you a lot for sharing the stories and encounters with us tonight.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah, man, we appreciate it.
All right, bud. Well, you take care, and if you ever run into anything else, get a hold of us. Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. Sounds
Will
like
do.
you might.
I really hope not. But
Yeah, sounds like you don't have a choice.
no,
Right.
it might have been Mark. I really don't know. I don't know how all that works. But keep having things happening. So.
Right. Thanks again, Kyle. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's really cool that he had his encounter close to where Dwayne had his encounter.
Yeah, I didn't realize that it was that close to where Dwayne was.
Right, and those guys knew each other and were
That's pretty cool.
officers together. So yeah.
We need to get down that way and take a look around. It's not that far.
No, it's not far at all. Maybe an hour and a half at the most, I'm thinking. If
Yeah.
that.
That's what I'm
I know.
thinking.
As soon as the weather breaks and starts warming up, it's several months down the road. It's going to feel like a year, but
Yeah.
we'll get out there and check it
The
out.
next 6 months of winter that we got to deal with.
Exactly. Anyway, listeners, thanks again for being here with us tonight. We appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you for being here with us for the last 100 episodes.
Yes, that
This
too.
is the last 99 episodes. And then this one tonight.
Right. Exactly.
So it's pretty awesome, man. Thank you guys.
Thanks for being here with me for these 100 episodes, man. I look forward to 100
Man,
more with you.
Always fun. Always fun. Always learning.
All right, man. Until next time.
Right on. See ya.